Quantum Energy in Business, Human Potential with Quinn Stainfield-Bruce. Want to understand the invisible energy that drives business? Join us for a fascinating conversation with Quinn Stainfield-Bruce, the visionary behind Humanness, who believes businesses are energetic organisms. We'll discuss why energetic hygiene is vital for thriving company culture, how to cultivate human energy for explosive growth, and what to do about the staggering $8.9 trillion global cost of low engagement. It's time to reimagine businesses with a human-centered approach, blending ancient wisdom and modern science. Don't miss this. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. Welcome. Let me share a little bit about the incredible guest that we have with us today. Quinn Stainfield-Bruce is the visionary behind Humanness, a consultancy that helps organizations tap into human potential by understanding businesses as energetic organisms. Drawing from quantum physics, energy principles, and spirituality, he guides leaders to cultivate thriving cultures, improve employee engagement, and achieve sustainable growth. I am so pleased to help welcome to our stage today, Quinn. Welcome.
Thank you so much, April. It's so nice to be here. It's so nice to be here with you.
We're going to have such a great conversation because we're very much in alignment. We at the Wellness Driven Life Show bring in that spiritual component to overall well-being often. And you can't have a thriving business without it. There must be some sort of components with that. There needs to be that understanding of the energy and the frequencies that we all emit. And you have this incredible understanding and gift to be able to describe that, explain that with all of us, that not only for us, but the business itself as an energetic entity. So this is going to be great. Let's get started by sharing with the audience a little bit more about yourself so we can get to know you more.
It would be a pleasure, and I think this is going to be an amazing conversation because the gloves are off. I'm with my people. You are my people, April. We speak the same language. We speak the same language of spirituality. I am not going to hide any of these things. I spent my entire professional career in the corporate world. I started my first consultancy when I was 18, working with major multinationals, everyone from Adidas and Samsung through to Nestle and Unilever and PepsiCo. I spent my whole professional career working with the world's biggest organizations. And the journey that I went on to lead me to create Humanness with my partners, the journey that I went on to see the importance of it and the need for it, of which I put at the absolute corner spirituality. The journey that I'll share that journey with you because I'm not ashamed of talking about spirituality in business. I'm not ashamed of talking about the need for this well-being, this restoration of soul. Things aren't working today. Right, the low engagement numbers, the cost of business, all of these things, the burnout, people just aren't happy. But it was my personal journey of unhappiness that led me to understand what was missing within business. So I'll start there. When I was 12, my mother left. She took my sisters and left me. So I had this incredibly profound moment of abandonment. The entire feminine actually was removed from my life when I was sort of just before puberty. I dealt with this pain in two ways. High achieving, thus, setting up a company when I was 18, If I could be successful enough, if I could make enough money, if I could do all of the things, then I would feel worthy. So that was one way I dealt with it. The other way was with alcohol and substance abuse. The quickest way to change how I feel would be to get drunk or get high. Now, those two modes of operandus, the high achieving and the substance abuse, they are unsustainable. You can't keep achieving or keep drinking in the hope of sustaining some idea of happiness. Because the truth was, with the maternal abandonment, I felt that I was unlovable and worthless. I didn't know this at the time, of course, but that's how I spent most of my life feeling. 6 years ago, I hit a wall. You know, people call it a rock bottom. I hit a spiritual bankruptcy where my best attempt at life had not worked. And actually, this came off the back of closing a fairly big deal. So there was money, I was married, children, lived in a nice area. I hadn't hit this sort of destitution, but spiritually, I was like, my best attempt at life has failed. And so I put myself into rehab, and I come out of rehab, quit that job, and I start this sort of 6-year journey of recovering Quinn. And obviously on that journey, a big part of that is spirituality. I had no spirituality before. I never had meditated before. I didn't have any concept of a higher power. I had I was just trapped in my own ego. But on the journey of uncovering that and uncovering what happiness really meant to me, I realized what was so fundamentally broken with the world of work that we live in.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that very vulnerable piece of yourself. And we all have something that, whether we know it or not, like you mentioned, I didn't know it at the time, that this is why I'm responding in life this way. But we have that, and it tends to be that moment of rock bottom or this profound, oh my gosh, something's not right here, even though everything outside of myself seems to be right, or I've strived to make sure that life will be fulfilling, and yet there's something missing here. And when we talk about spirituality, it's not in the religious contents per se. It is a knowing something that is within us and all around us, right? And, maybe not so much in this, definitely not so much in this physical form. And science so much more is coming out with what we don't know, 99.9%. Quinn, share a little bit about what does it mean to you as far as the science aspect and the spiritual aspect, and how you bring that forth now.
Okay, it's a great question. So spirituality to me, and none of this is woo-woo, simply that the best way I can explain it to people is that I am not the center of the universe, that I am a part of it. It's a subtle paradigm shift, right? And that's really spirituality. I'll repeat it again, that I am not the center of the universe, that I am a part of it. And when one connects with that feeling, there is a slight relief that comes with it. And really, spirituality is the pursuit of that relief, of that feeling that comes with acknowledging that I am a part of something much bigger. The science behind it all is a justification for those who may not have experienced that relief. Okay. And I'm talking to my people here, April. I'm talking to you. So I'm going to just be super frank. Anyone who has experienced a degree of spirituality, right? We both love Joe Dispenza, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who has gone on a Joe Dispenza retreat, anyone who practices Joe Dispenza will know what it feels like to move from a high beta brainwave state of stress to an alpha brainwave state of creativity. Right? We know, we've experienced it, but try to explain that to someone who hasn't experienced it.
Right.
Impossible. It's impossible. However, if we bumped into someone in the street or in the coffee shop who was a Joe Dispenza fan, and we started talking to them about the power of that, it would just electrify the conversation. So why is science important to me? Because to those who haven't experienced it, it offers an explanation as to why the spiritual experience happens, right? Because it's not woo-woo, it's not magic, it's actually a thing. And why I love it so much is that it's ancient human practice around the world. All different groups, all different cultures, all different tribes have practiced spirituality. And why? Because it has a profound effect on the human experience. We lost that, but science now can explain why it's so important. And so what I'm saying very bravely here, I guess, is I don't need the science personally. I've experienced this stuff. The science is important for those who haven't experienced it. And what I also know is that when people have experienced it, they don't really need the science either. Because what starts generating, and again, this is not religious, is an idea of faith, right? Faith, not in anything dogmatic or religious, but because they've experienced it, you then have a knowing. So, sorry, I'm really passionate about this.
As am I. And that's something that I really appreciate about Dr. Joe's work, is that he brings that science to everyone when you are at that point of not knowing yet. And you walk in with maybe a little bit of a understanding, but again, you walk out with a complete knowing, that innate aspect of ourselves. I like to say that if you say that we're not spiritual, energetic beings, it's like saying that you don't have skin. It's just a part of us. It's who we are. And we don't tap into it, as if all of a sudden we discover we have a thumb and we have this limb that we can utilize to do so many incredible things. And we're like, oh my gosh, I have this thing and I can really put it to use, right? It's like this amazing discovery of self. And then the things that we're capable of are so vast and so great. And why do we want to bring that into business? Well, because that's how we operate in this, global system that we have created, is that we do business for each other, with each other, to make the world go round and round, right? And within that functioning aspect, we want to bring in this piece of ourselves, because it's what will help create the movement. It's like a well-oiled machine, and we just haven't oiled up that machine yet.
Well, for me, it's a means to an end, right? Why would we why I want to champion this stuff into business? The reason I called humanness is because human qualities, it's about the restoration of human qualities to the heart of business. Again, not particularly woo-woo, right? And I don't like the term woo-woo. I think we need to reclaim spirituality as a thing that is just a thing. But until that point, human qualities like honesty, kindness, love, purpose, creativity, passion, these are innate human qualities. And that my goal is that these are restored to the heart of day-to-day business. The thing is, in order to restore them to the heart of business, we have to deal with the fact that the majority of people are turning up to work in fear, in the high beta brainwave states, places of high cortisol, high stress. And this is where the burnout comes from. This is where the mental health decline comes from. This is where people wanting to quit comes from. It's because people are in this state of fear. If we're in a state of fear, we're not in a place of creativity and flow. So how can we introduce honesty and creativity and passion and purpose and all of these human qualities if people are in a state of fight or flight? So how do we move people from a place of fear to a place of creativity? And this is where the wonderful stuff of Dr. Joe comes in, is that if we move people from a place of high beta to alpha brainwave state, we have created an environment where humans can more naturally be human. Because when you're not in fear, you're brave to be vulnerable. You know, why did I tell you that story about my mother leaving me at the beginning? Because do you know what? By me being vulnerable with you, April, and maybe the listeners or people who are watching, they get a chance to connect with me on a more empathetic and human level. I'm not just this person who started a business who's doing a thing. I'm a human being who has suffered pain and trauma, and maybe in the same way other people have. And then they get to see my soul a little bit and connect. Now we're in the place of human creativity.
And you bring in such an incredible point that we can't access that state of creativity living in a state of anxiety and fear. And so many people across the world are operating in that state without knowing it. And so bringing that awareness piece into it, that understanding of, oh, this is why I'm responding the way that I am, is really key and essential. And so we're going to move into our first commercial. And when we get back, I'm going to continue this incredible conversation. Stay tuned. Are you ready to take control of your ride to wellness? Rev up with Driven Living. Visit www.drivenliving.com and buckle up for a journey. Get exclusive access to our Wellness Driven Life Show guest portal, where you can dive deep into the minds of our esteemed guests. Sign up for our newsletter and get insider scoops on these distinguished personalities. It's like having a backstage pass to their life-changing wisdom. But that's not all. You'll also receive a free hug. You heard me right, a free hug. An enlightening ebook from the Driven Living team. Discover the science-backed benefits of hugging yourself. It's a fill-up for your wellness tank. Because at Driven Living, we believe in fueling your journey to wellness, both physically and psychologically. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.drivenliving.com today. Welcome back, everyone. Here with the incredible Quinn Stainfield-Bruce, having a discussion about humanness and what that means for all of us and for business. And so moving forward with this conversation of, yes, we all have past traumas to heal and work on. And there's also businesses that have traumas to heal and work on. And we're living in this an extraordinary time coming out of a global pandemic and what that means for businesses. And there's so many shifts and things happening rapidly. We have AI, we have just all of the things where businesses are really shifting and possibly, redevising how they're moving forward so they can attempt to catch up and keep up with the world, right? So there may be many layoffs. And there was something that you mentioned. And by the way, everyone, following Quinn on social media, LinkedIn is definitely somebody that you would like to, if you've gotten this far in the conversation, this is intriguing to you. I love what he puts out, the content. So Quinn Stainfield-Bruce, LinkedIn, and something that you mentioned the other day that I thought was very, very interesting and wonderfully said was that businesses they suffer traumas as well as a whole. So would you mind explaining that and talking a little bit about that, please?
So let's drop into a little bit of science. If atoms are 99.999% empty space, right? If that's a fact, then what is what is influencing us and the things around us, right? Well, we know about frequency. We know about electricity. Energy, again, I'm not a quantum physicist. I'm not a scientist by any stretch. But energy, frequency, we know how it impacts things. I mean, we've known this for centuries. We know that gravity pulls things down. We know how electricity impacts lighting. So we know that there are invisible forces that influence things. We know as human beings, if we are, the majority of us is made up of empty space, we know that that empty space is going to be influenced by frequency and electricity and energy and all sorts of other types of things. So if a business is made up of people, then that collective organization is going to have an energetic frequency. It just will. We have experienced this as people when we walk in a room and we know that something's off. We know that if we have a loved one or a child who's feeling something, we pick up on that energy before we see them. Like, we know this innately as human beings, right? But there is the science behind how frequency impacts matter is out there now. So if we look at a business, there's a collection of people. It could be 10 people, could be 10,000, could be 100,000. There is going to be an energetic element to that. Now, if that business goes through a divorce, let's say, perhaps it splits in two, right? Perhaps half of the business goes one way, the other half goes another way. That is a divorce. Now, if two children had to go through a divorce, we would say, well, that's traumatic for you. Or perhaps a merger. Let's imagine, and I like this analogy of the parents, because let's say that part of a business gets sold off to another business, and suddenly they now have new step-parents, new brothers and sisters. How is that process energetically not traumatic to that organism? How does it not generate fear and frequencies of stress within the organization? And yet, with this type of corporate trauma, is anyone really acknowledging it? Is anyone catering for it? I mean, yes, of course, the HR departments have to come in and try and cater for the transition. But is anyone really taking into account the energetic impact that that's having on the people who work there? My impulse is no. And it's not because people don't care. It's because people haven't really considered how you do cater for energy within an organization.
Right. And I would love to know what your thoughts are on that, because I mean, I think many of us, but I have seen firsthand just exactly what you're explaining. And I agree with you. I love the analogy of the parents and the split and the siblings. And then now we have, a step sibling or what have you. So I think it's brilliant.
Well, let's carry on with that analogy just between you and I. Okay, so let's say that I'm a child of divorce. Right. And actually also I am divorced as an adult and now in a very loving relationship. But, I've gone through that trauma. What did I need going through that? Well, I had some therapy. I talked it through. I talked through my feelings. I allowed those feelings to be processed. But then what else do I do to look after myself today because I know better? Well, I do physical exercise. I do yoga, I do sound baths, I do things that are therapeutically good for my body in order to release those stores of trauma, those stores of energy. I'm also very kind to myself and I allow myself the space to process things that need to be processed, as well as getting on with my very, very busy day to day. So, so what would, if we were to translate that to an organization that's gone through some sort of trauma, some sort of merger, well, again, it would be about creating a safe environment for the feelings to be expressed. We were working with one client last year where the CEO, tragically committed suicide. And this had happened, a few years back. And the entire staff had never been given the opportunity to grieve that process. It had sort of been brushed under the carpet very quickly. The PR team had tried to move past it. And what had come up years later was that as to why the KPIs of the business were going down, was that actually the entire staff were in grieving, but hadn't been allowed to grieve. They hadn't been allowed to acknowledge this and to connect with each other and to release that energy that they had all been experiencing. So again, for me, what would we do? well, what we propose needs to be done is that the environment needs to be created within the organization where people feel safe and held, right?
Yes.
Where they can move from high beta, stress and fear, to alpha, creativity, flow, childlikeness. Because what comes from that? Trust. Right. And this is the thing. And, again, speak to any multinational organization, speak to any HR department. What they want more than anything is to build trust with the employees. But how do you build trust? You build it again through vulnerability, right? Someone in charge needs to be vulnerable and show everyone that this is a safe space, right, to be held.
Right. Vulnerability, feeling safe at that safety aspect, the security piece, absolutely. And what's detrimental about not addressing all of these things is because there's that lack of trust. It's not only that lack of trust outside of ourselves with the people that we are supposed to be working with and communicating with, but it starts to have you question yourself. And it's just this trickle effect of not being able to trust others, trust yourself, and all of the things. And it leads to this very harmful piece. And not being able to move forward well, whether it's in this current agency or another one, it's a very difficult thing to come out of, just like with any trauma that we experience, until we finally start understanding that, okay, need to start doing the work and going within. And so thank you so much for explaining that. It's a concept that many of us don't consider. We consider ourselves, but we don't consider us as a whole. And there's a lot of discussions now revolving around the oneness, the wholeness, the collective consciousness. And so that's just bringing that into this particular conversation revolving around business and corporate and the entities of that.
Yes, exactly, April. And if an individual has trauma and they don't deal with it, what happens? Does it just magically go away? Or do they just continue as high functioning human beings in all aspects of their life, their romantic relationships, their work, etc.? No. What tends to happen is if trauma isn't addressed and dealt with, it becomes toxic. Why would that be any different within a working environment, an organization? But is it the business's job to cater for individuals' well-being and mental health and trauma and all of these types of things? I would say it's not the business's job to do that. It's not. It's an individual's responsibility fundamentally to look after their own well-being and their own growth, right? But why would a business care about this? Well, most businesses today, their purpose, regardless of what they say, is anchored in growth, especially if they're a public business. So if they are dealing with shareholder returns, for example, then profit is the ultimate goal. Here's the great irony about this, what you and I are trying to bring to the world, to business, is that if you have a healthy ecosystem, there is only one thing a healthy ecosystem can do, and that is to grow. So if we look after the human beings within business, if we actually introduce it and get these human qualities, bring the spirituality, bring the neuroscience, bring people from a place of fear to a place of creativity, if we start introducing that and people are allowed to function highly, then the output for the business is that it grows. Those profits return, the market share increases. This is the great irony of this. We're not doing this because just because people are sad at work and they're not happy and that well-being is a new trend and that people think, no, this is actual business sense. Because if you have purpose when you turn up at work, you're going to work harder. You're going to be more productive. You're going to be more creative. You know, the fact that people end up happier, well, that's a wonderful byproduct. This is just common sense to me anyway.
Right. Yes. And, you know, having the tools to put in your tool belt to be able to utilize all of those things, you know, that you are given at the workplace that you are able to utilize to get to that creative state and maintain that aspect of yourself while you're playing that role is essential. And again, going back to the way that things trickle out, it goes back to the home environment, the personal life, and just being able to bring all of that in all facets. So, Quinn, you have been an amazing guest on the Wellness Driven Life Show. I want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you. We've had it displayed here on the screen throughout the show for those of you watching. For those of you listening in, we are Humanness.com. We are Humanness.com, easy peasy. It will also be in the description below. So, Quinn, do you have anything else that you would like to share with our audience today?
I just have one shout out, right? If you are in corporate life, you know, it doesn't matter big or small, and you have been on your own journey of growth where you understand these concepts of spirituality and of the neuroscience behind moving from a place of high beta to a place of alpha, if these are things that you understand and you've experienced, then please do reach out and connect with everyone you can that has also experienced it, because this is a global awakening that is going on right now. And you know, yes, people are waking up to this stuff everywhere around the world from all walks of life. And I believe it is all of our responsibility, those of us who have woken up to it, to carry it into business. And so, you know, that's my call to action, is reach out, connect, let's come together. Let's have conversations and let's see where it goes. Let's surrender to the unknown. But only in coming together are we going to make that happen. So April, it's been a pleasure. And, you know, like I say, you're my people. So, you know, sending so much love.
Thank you, Quinn. I couldn't agree more. Continue the conversation, because as we continue these conversations, it continues the conversations. It continues the global aspect of evolving. And that's exactly what we're all here to do, is to evolve to the higher states, to being a better human being. And so, Quinn, one last question. I'm curious because, you know, as we move forward within business entities, and if we are not quite there yet getting the tools from those sources in life, what can we do ourselves to start honing in on that? And the question is, what are some of the things that you do on a daily basis to really help maintain that higher frequency vibration as you go throughout your day?
Great question. Number one, attraction rather than promotion. Right? People will be more inclined to ask me what it is, just like you did, what it is, what do I do? You know, if I came from a place 6 years ago of complete despair, of addiction and all of the things, and yet today I am happier than I've ever been, in a more beautiful relationship than I've ever been, more purpose-driven than I've ever been. You know, my relationship with my children is fantastic. My relationship with my dog is amazing. Physical, spiritual, emotional. I don't need to necessarily promote that to people. People say, well, hold on a minute, what did you do? And then I get to say, well, if you're interested, I can show you. But to answer your question about what do, I meditate every day. I need to be aware of how I'm feeling. If I'm not aware of how I'm feeling, then I'm in real trouble. Because if I can't be honest with myself, how can I possibly be honest with other people? And then if I can't be honest with other people, then how can I build that trust? How can I build that intimacy? So meditation, fundamentally important. physical, I do exercise, looking after myself. The somatic release of pent-up energy has to happen. For me, it's running. For my girlfriend, it's all sorts of other somatic practices. But I need to release that somehow. And it's about being connected to other human beings. I need to be able to share how I'm feeling every day with other people. And I need to be there so that other people can share with me how they're feeling. Because it's not just about me, it's about being able to get out of my own head and be of service. Because the only way I've ever made any real self-esteem is being in service to other people. And so that's some of what I do.
Quinn, beautifully, beautifully said. Motion creates emotion. Meditation is going within to really have a better understanding of self, to be able to serve others. And that is the ultimate thing that we can do, is to be of service. So incredible guest. Thank you so much again for being here, sharing yourself with us on the Wellness Driven Life show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you so much to our audience, because without you, the show wouldn't be possible. So goodbye for now, and we will see you next time.